When I was little, I loved to read. Now, I still love to read, but it looks a little different. While when I was younger, I tried to acquire the largest library I could with physical books. Now my library is largely online. These are some of the apps that I use to help me access the world. When you go to Overdrive, you can open the app and log in through your library. Once you're there, you can search for hundreds of different audiobooks and ebooks. You can also place holds on books that aren't available, and they'll tell you when your book comes in. I also use Audible. Audible is a monthly subscription plan. You have to pay for it, but once you have access, there are thousands of books that you can download. If I go to my library, you can see that I have dozens and dozens of books. And while it's not quite the same as having a physical library, it works for me. When I was born with retinopathy of prematurity, astigmatism, severe nearsightedness, and a lazy eye. As I got older, my eye conditions got worse. When I first started college, I declared an English major with a writing concentration, so I did an awful lot of reading. After my sophomore year of college, I started developing double vision, and I would get a lot of migraines when I close read things. I had to start working with the Disability Service Center at my school. When I first started going to them, they told me I needed to provide proof of disability. This was easy for me because I was able to go to my ophthalmologist and they were able to write me a letter. But for some people, getting proof of disability is more difficult. It can be time-consuming and expensive. When I first went to the Disability Service Center, I worked with one of the two faculty members to decide what my accommodations needed to be. In the end, we decided that I needed extra time on exams, handouts needed to be in 18-point font or available online so that I could blow them up on my computer, and I needed access to my computer in class and to audiobooks or ebooks of my textbooks. There are two different sites that I could use to access my textbooks, Bookshare and Learning Ally. Both you need proof of disability in order to access, and your school helps you set up those accounts. But there are also regular apps that other people can use even if they don't have proof of disability. You can get ebooks and audiobooks through your library through apps called Libby and Overdrive. You can log in with your library card number and then you have access to hundreds of books. You can also use an app called Speechify where you can take a picture of pages and it will read them back to you. These things came in handy for me when my books weren't always available on Bookshare or Learning Ally. While I'd love to say my teachers were always compliant with my accommodation needs, they weren't. Sometimes teachers have rules that you can't have computers in class. I have an accommodation letter and a proof of disability, so I was allowed my laptop, but sometimes teachers were very stubborn about it. And while I understand why they don't want technology in the classroom because it can be a distraction to other students, you shouldn't argue with somebody who has a disability when they're just trying to get access to what everybody else already has. Other times, there have been professors who forget to print things in larger font, and so I've taken to bringing a magnifying glass with me to classes. It magnifies things 2.5 times, and it makes it easier for me to read it. It also has a light because it's hard for me to see in dim environments. When I was a junior, I transferred schools, and going from one disability service center to the other was sort of like a slap in the face with how underprepared my new school was. At my old school, there were two different faculty members, and it was their sole job to deal with disability services and accommodations. We also had a testing center where students could go to take their exams in a quiet environment with extra time and help from the Disability Service Center faculty members if they needed it. At my new school, the Disability Service Center didn't really exist. Sure, they had one person in charge, but that person was pulled in many different directions. They also ran the writing center and were in charge of other services at the school. They didn't study to be a disability services person. And it took a while for my accommodations to be in place at this school. And that was difficult for me because it meant that I couldn't learn the same way other students were learning. With Bookshare, you can request different books, but sometimes it takes a while for that book to come. In one of my classes last semester, I needed to have the Norton Anthology of Theory and Criticism, the 3rd edition. Bookshare only had the first edition, and a lot of the texts that I needed weren't in it. I went through the process of requesting the book, and my request went through. However, it took nearly 3 months for the request to come through, which meant 3 months of me trying to read teeny tiny print in this anthology. Thankfully, I had Speechify where I could take pictures of the text and it would read it back to me, but that shouldn't have been the case. At my old school, the Disability Service Center could have scanned my textbook for me and gotten it back to me within a few days, and I would have had access to the text online. With the Disability Service Center at my new school, I had to email the Disability Service Center faculty member about 4 different times, and they didn't respond to me, so I had to get my advisor involved and the professor of my course involved. And while they were helpful, it would have been nice if the Disability Service Center faculty member had gotten back to me on time. These are just some of the things that I face in the classroom, and I'm scared for what I'm going to face outside of the classroom. Right now, I'm a double major with publishing and editing and creative writing. I know that in the creative writing world, people are becoming more accommodating for people with disabilities and other marginalized groups. Different presses and different publication magazines are seeking out voices that aren't being heard. I can put in my author's bio that I'm a person with disabilities and that I have multiple chronic illnesses, and they will listen to me. It doesn't mean for sure that I'm going to get published in that magazine or through that press, but it means that somebody is listening to me. In the publishing industry, I'm not really sure what to expect. I don't know what it will look like if I'm working as a part of a team. Will I be able to have things in large print? Will I be able to always use a computer? I know that it may seem silly to some, but it's part of my life, and it's a big part of my life. If I don't have access to things, then I can't meet deadlines the way that I need to. In short, accessibility is access for all, but it's not as prominent in the world as it should be. When people think of accessibility, they often think of ramps and elevators and people in wheelchairs. But there are a lot more disabilities out there, and some of them are invisible. You can't always look at a person and know that they're disabled. Some industries in the world are more prepared than others. At restaurants, some of them have large print menus or braille menus. At the movie theater, you can ask for captioning glasses so that you can see captions while seeing a film. I don't think that the publishing industry is as prepared for people with disabilities as the rest of the world. And it's going to be people like me who are trying to navigate that world and pave a path for people like us. Disabilities look different on everybody, and accessibility looks different for everybody. I just hope that the future is accessible.